All right, the Kaʻū Action Committee will now come to order. It is September 19th, 20. Let's try this again. Can you hear me now? Good. The Kaʻū Action Committee will now come to order. It is September 19th, 2024. The time is now 5:05 p.m. This meeting is held in person and by interactive conference technology. The meeting will also be recorded on Zoom. As a reminder, per Sunshine Law, Action Committee members appearing remotely must keep their cameras on and announce anyone who is with them except for minors in their location. We will now have a roll call. Committee members, Vice Chair Pernell Hanoa.
Present.
Committee member Jesse Kay.
Here.
Babette Morrow.
Here.
Catherine Williams.
Here.
Waohinani Mokuhali.
Here.
Kaveni Ibarra.
Yeah.
Vena Alainos.
Here.
And I am Chair
Okay.
Masters. We have a quorum to hold this meeting. We have no absences. We have several members from county staff. In the planning department, we have Miriam Palma, Cavello Kalili, Jessica Lahit, Janice Hata, April Supranan, Natasha Soriano, and Shannon Arquitola. Also, I apologize if I said anyone's name. Also in attendance, we have Deputy Corporation Counsel Jean Campbell, attorney for the committee.
She said she got it.
Oh, I guess we do not have her. Please make sure your cell phones are turned off or on silent mode. If there's anyone here who would like to testify, please fill out one of these forms. I believe they're near the front door. And give it to our staff. Zoom testifiers can send a message in the chat to the Zoom host indicating which item they wish to testify on. We ask that everyone please state your name before speaking. To all of us who are attending here in person, please remember to speak towards the owl camera so everyone on Zoom can hear. A general reminder to keep in compliance with Sunshine Law. All testimony and discussion must be addressing the specific agenda item the committee is deliberating. If anyone has anything else to discuss that is not on today's agenda, it can be brought up at agenda item number 5, which is for the next meeting. So testimony for agenda item 5 can be taken at the beginning of the meeting or later, excuse me, or later in the meeting when item is called. So the time is now 5:08 p.m. The committee will now call for statements from the public. As stated in the public agenda, published agenda, members of the public may provide public testimony regarding any agenda item now or at the time the agenda item is called to order. So we do have one public comment sign-up sheet. So if there's anyone else who would like to testify, please fill out the sign-up form on the front table and give it to staff. So Savory, would you like to speak now regarding agenda item number 2, or would you like to wait for agenda item number 2?
I can go ahead and speak. I don't have a whole lot to say.
Okay, so we will take your testimony now.
Shall I be closer to the owl?
Can I give them the microphone?
Okie dokie. My name is Savory Yarrow, and I live in Oakview, Hawaii, in Kaʻū, for many years. And I'm here for the second time. I was at the last Action Committee meeting with the same intent, which was to recommend that the Action Committee forward their letter of non-recommendation to the Windward Planning Committee regarding the Honolulu Beach Resort as proposed. And my reasons for doing that are several. Primarily that I took part in as a observer of the CDP process when it was being formulated before it was passed into law. At a time when the community's input was requested. And the community's input in large was to preserve the scenic natural beauty of Kaʻū over all other considerations. Specifically, to not invite large hotel development in Kaʻū. It was very clear from public testimony that that was the general public intent, and I believe that was codified into the CDP as it was passed. So to some extent, I find it disturbing that even any developer would come to the planning department requesting a 500 unit installation at one of the center points of Kaʻū that is utilized by the local residents. To me, that is a simple not understanding of the intent of the Planning Commission and the CDP. That if they had come, for example, with a proposal for 50 units and a campground and ecotourism and the presentation of traditional Hawaiian crops being grown on the premises in an educational setting, that was something that would sail on through, you know, in my opinion, at least, regarding the CDP as intended by the community. But to be presented is just a money-making venture by people who don't seem to be sensitive to what the community intends. And they need to seriously reconsider their position. So that's why I would propose that this committee pass on the letter to the Wynwood Planning Committee as presented with Ron Whitmore's testimony and the assessment that this particular proposal does not meet the criteria of the CDP. And I would ask all of you to vote in favor of that and send a clear signal to all future developers that they seriously consider the needs of the community more than the taxable resources of the land. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have an additional, Miriam, also regarding agenda item number 2, would you like to speak now or?
It's one word, it's actually everything. It touches on the general plan, it touches on the Kaʻū development and also the bottling facility, they all have the same types of
Okay,
concern.
I believe you're allowed to speak on each item if you'd like. So would you like to speak generally now and on each item?
Speak generally now about
Okay.
everything, I don't want to take up everybody's
All right.
time, because you can apply what I'm talking about to each
Well,
situation.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so I've done this before without any notes. Now I decided to have some notes. One of the things I wanted to start saying is that
Oh, and I'm sorry, please state your
Oh.
name for the record.
Marion Deershot, lived in Kaʻū since 2007. So we, as adult human beings, have a responsibility to be good stewards of the places we are. That just comes with the territory of being an adult. That's why we create planning departments and commissions that are comprised of ordinary citizens. It's all of our responsibility to stand up for each other and stand up for the community. Down here in Kaʻū, there is very little infrastructure in this area to support the development of this scale. So the developer will have to be responsible for things typically served by public works and public utilities as part of the county. Which doesn't, you know, the things that I take away from the 2045 general plan are things sustainability and the environment seem to be huge issues on that paper. As we're making this decision, it seems that those things aren't quite as important. And we should look at that. We should take that into consideration. And I agree with Savory. This is If this were in any way a reasonable development of a reasonable size, you want to come in and build a few houses, you want, that's fine, but there is so much that's being proposed here. It will change the lifestyles of everyone that lives here. We have a 1-2 lane road that goes through here. And we're gonna put a mini resort down at we're gonna need traffic lights, we only have a few gas stations. Water is at a huge premium down here, and we're gonna suck it out of Pahala and sell it in bottles. If we're gonna, do these plans, then we should stick by them. If we're gonna use words like sustainability, and we're gonna talk about how important the environment and the culture is, then we should actually act like that. I'd like to commend the commission, this action committee, for your diligence in diving into these issues and your patience and willingness to listen to the community and to take it seriously. I am wondering, as I'm digging into this, I came across something that made me curious. The CDP, our CDP was, I'm assuming, submitted to the Windward Planning Commission and then to the county council? Does anyone know? Yes. So so the CDP is adopted by ordinance as law. Law. Please uphold it. Thank you.
And just for the record, Marion, did you want to speak again, or was that sufficient?
I
or-
reserve the right.
Okay, that's fine. And Sophia, did you want to speak now, or did you want to wait for the agenda item? Now? It'd be agenda item number 2. But you can speak now, and then you could also speak then, it's up to you. So again, state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Aloha, my name is Sophia Hanoa. I was born and raised here in Pahala. My husband is the Konahiki of Punaluu. And I sit here meeting after meeting. And I've listened, we have a kupuna on the committee. Nobody ever asked cultural questions. People testifying without even knowing what we have been working with. We have been maintaining the last kuli on the land at Punaluu since the great Mahele, our ohana, and now it's our generation, our time. To perpetuate the teachings from the kupuna is vital. We have so much misinformation, so many things being taught, so the mo'olelos that are putting out there are false. You can only learn the true culture, not from all young individuals, but walking with our kupuna. Now, I hear testimony about, this and that and the other about how special Kaʻū is. We know how special it is. We know how special, we live and breathe Kaʻū, those of us who were born and raised here. But we also need opportunity. No, we do not support resort development, but we would support the cleanup. What you guys don't understand, for us who are the real traditional cultural practitioners, and by which I mean not going around and being a tour guide, but actually wake up every day and do pule, do oli, honor our gods, honor what the ancestors have left for us, for all our ethnicity, of all that we are, not only Hawaiian. That's what makes a Kaʻū lifestyle. Because it was all ancestors that made it possible for us to be here and enjoy the Kaʻū that we have. So no, you don't have to remind us of how special Kaʻū is. We know. If you want to find out, ask the people of the area. People came and testified, I saw testimony in Hilo. They're not even from this island. And you're going to tell me about the general public? You know who the general public is? So who we need to go to is our kupuna here in Kaʻū. Our kupuna who is here in Pahala. When it comes to the bottled water, we faced this before. He does not own the mineral rights. He cannot use that tunnel. It's ready to fall in. What is he going to do, drill? Do not reinvent the wheel. Come to the source. Our kupuna. The Konahiki of Punaluu. Mauka to Makai. The ones who live the lifestyle, Paniola, La Vaia. You guys going to all these people who does not even live the lifestyle. Some of them gave testimony that should have been stricken from the records because it was personal, and nobody said that. Nobody brought that up, but they let it go. I thought the CDP was to, yes, abide by what is in the manual, but when people get personal agendas and using the committee for their personal, to get their agenda ahead, that's wrong. But you guys want to talk about Punalu, come to the people who actually live there. Come to the people who actually know what is the Honu. The Honu are our ancestors. It shouldn't even have a papo haku around it. Who came up with that idea? Nobody questioning that though. But they're worried about the Honu. It's the people that need to learn how to walk among the Honu. And you guys need to learn properly from the proper people, not the ones who are out there trying to get their 5 minutes of fame. Going on all kind of podcasts, talking about Kaʻū, putting Kaʻū out there. Not everything in Kaʻū is everybody's supposed to know about. If you don't know about it, then it wasn't such a kuleana. If you're not from that Ahupua'a, again, you maha'oi. You guys really want to help, and all coming to, I believe and I respect everybody, it has value here. We can all work together to make Kaʻū a better place. But not when it becomes so divisive, us against them. How can we make Honolulu better? What do you guys want? Just shut it down? Let it continue to be what it is? Don't seek the opportunity? These developers have worked with us for 3 years. We protect all of Wagipanda because we know where all the burials are. The people that testify don't know. Do you know where all the burials are? Do you? No. Do you know where other sacred sites? No, we know, but we're not going to divulge that in the public arena. That's not for everybody to know. And I know I'm going to go my 3 minutes. But when it comes to culture, I can stress enough. You guys have a kupuna here. You have a kupuna here. You guys get questions about Punalu'u. Ask the kupuna. Ask the kupuna from your area. And if they don't know, they want to point you into the right direction. But please, we want to talk about respecting culture. That's protocol. For those who speak without mentioning the kupuna, don't have kupuna, that's not protocol. They're not traditional practitioners. And I don't like the word practitioners anyway, because we don't practice how we live. We live. But I feel everybody's going to play a key part in the future of Honolulu and the future of the opportunities that we can give our children. No, we're not about resort development, but we are about ecotherapy, not ecotourism. And if we all come together and create something for our people that will invite healers, healers going to come, and that's what Honolulu is about. They're going to come, they're going to heal. We're going to heal our people. They're going to come, they're going to leave, and they're going to help heal the world. There's never been a place like that, ever. Now is the time. Globally, it's calling for all of us. And I ask them, all the females, to please, let's step up here. We the nurturers. Let's do this. Create a space for our people. Create a space for autistic children. Create a space where our elderly can actually go down to Honolulu, plug in their oxygen, and spend the whole day down there. That's what we're looking out for. So people just coming off, top of their head and saying this is this, but they never sat down to ask the details. We don't even know the final details because we need to clean up the place, first of all. Do you really think that we're going to allow people to come here and ruin our sacred heiaus and stuff that the family has been taking for generations over our dead bodies? But with the help of everybody, we can work to move Kaʻū forward and still preserve. And it's all about respect. And that's what my whole thing is about, respect. And everybody has value.
Thank you. I think that's all the in-person testimony at this point. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to provide public testimony at this point? All right, seeing none, the time is now 5:24 p.m. We will now move on to business item number 1. The final draft general plan 2045 presentation and questioned and answered by the planning department staff. So, is there anyone? Seems kind of redundant, but is there anyone who would like to provide testimony on this item? Seeing none, public testimony for this item is now closed, and we will hear the presentation. Okay.
April with the planning department. I can give a short presentation or a long presentation, but before we do that, I'm really mostly interested in hearing from you all and committee members. Thank you for having us, and answering any questions that we can answer. So happy to do that. So before I do at least an initial, just really short intro part of the presentation, how many of you have either attended or watched a recording of one of the workshops that we did in the last couple of weeks? Excellent. Okay, great. Okay, good. So I think what I'll do then to just help everyone else with an intro, let me see, I have to. Do it and then share, I have to clear screen and then do it. No, do it and then catching up. So with the general plan, for those of you who may not be aware, is the purpose of the general plan is to be an overarching, high-level guiding document for the county as a whole. And it touches on almost everything that we do within our county. And so we like to call it that umbrella document because it's like an umbrella or a rainbow that oversees everything else that happens within the county and subject matter. And so what falls under that, for example, from a planning standpoint, are the community development plans, such as the Kaʻū community development plan, and other special area or urban plans, which we have in other areas, as well as what we call agency or functional plans, which is when an agency has a very specific subject matter plan for their kuleana, such as a water resources plan or some form of transportation plan, things like that. And then what further falls under, say, on the community development plan side are the regulatory pieces, which is how we implement those plans. So how the general plan and the community development plans get implemented are largely through codes and administrative rules. There are also projects, so that happens as well, but largely through that regulatory measure. And then the permits where the applications or people who want to submit their applications for uses then have to abide by the regulatory measures as well. On the capital side or on the agency side, those functional plans really feed into what we call the capital improvements program. And so we have a budget for that every year, and the agencies have to put forth the projects that they're gonna do. Also communicating with our staff and the community development plans on the projects that they're looking to do over the next 1 to 6 years. And then those budgets are adopted, and that's how we actually get county projects on the ground. So building a gym, putting in a road or improving a road, those kinds of things all go through our capital budget process. So the general plan process that we have been in looking back, where have we been? Our county has only had 3 general plans to date. So the original general plan was adopted in 1971. The second or the first amendment to the general plan, comprehensive review and amendment, was in 1989. And then the current general plan that we have today from 2005. And now we're proposing the next version of the general plan called General Plan in 2045. So that process was initiated in 2015. And we've been through several different drafts, as many of you have been a part of. So initiated in 15, we had a public draft of the draft policies and land use maps. In 2019, went through a lot of public workshops and process at that time. Then we had the draft that came out last year in 2023, again, another public process. And now we have what's called the final recommended draft general plan, which will now be going forward through the adoption, the review and recommendation and adoption process. And so that's where we are now. And I'll show you a slide on that in just a moment. And then on the right side is really just where we have the different sort of outreach along that same timeline, all of the different outreach. This is a short, snapshot of all of the agencies and things that we talked to and heard from, as well as the community. So that outreach more specifically looks like a number of different types of workshops, community groups, and what we used to call road shows, where we would kind of go out to various, if we were invited, we would go out to various other groups to their meetings and present to their meetings, things like that. And of course, action committee meetings all along the way, keeping our action committees up to date, as well as council updates and public hearings, other public agency type meetings to try to make sure we understand what our agencies are doing and how that compares to the CDPs and the like. And then during the different drafts, the various written public comments that we received during that process, and as well as public participation throughout this entire process. So we're in this place now with the public workshops that have recently happened, and many of you have either attended or watched those videos. We're here tonight in Kaʻū, and then we'll be in the other regions in the next few weeks. And so what this process looks like going forward is we are in the public review, kind of in between the workshops and the public review comment period, which for this phase of public comment closes September 26th. Then we will submit the plan and all of the comments that have been received. The planning department will no longer make changes or amendments to the plan. We will take all of those comments and package that and then present that to the planning commissions. They will do their review, they will make their recommendations, and that too will get added to the package. And that is what will go to county council, and then they will take it a step further. So we are expecting to be in planning commission at the end of October. I think our early planning commission meetings, I think the first one is November 1st. And then hopefully that will, with this being submitted there, we will be at county council probably in March of next year. The planning commissions have 150 days. They don't have to take all of that time, but basically 5 months in order to review and make their recommendations. So as many of you have seen as well, we have information available online. This is our planning department website. When you reach this page, this is just a piece of it, but above are the other years of all the different, and under each little arrow that pulls down, it drops down and gives you a lot of information of the process that we've been through. So we've broken it down by year and draft, with all of the different meetings and public comments received, the drafts themselves during those times, and a lot of other information, on workshops and things like that. And then one of these links will also take you to, some of you have probably seen the Conveo website, which is where you can actually, for now and through September 26th, you can add your comments directly into the program. You can navigate through it, you can do searches on it, you can do a lot of different things like that, both on the maps and on the document itself. So one of the things we look to with the general plan is the vision statement. This is the vision statement for the general plan, but we look to all of the adopted community development plans that have been done over the years, as well as other community plans that have been done. And this is sort of a synthesis of this vision statement is sort of a synthesis of all of that work that has been done by community. In terms of structure and how what you'll notice is there's the vision statement and then goals under various subject matter, as well as objectives and guidelines, but really how these things start to get implemented is through policies and action statements. The Kaʻū CDP has a very similar structure with vision, goals. I think it also has objectives, and then definitely policies and community actions. One of the things that this general plan has that none of the previous general plans has had is a more robust both chapter, but also woven throughout the entire plan, principles and practices of sustainability, things like regenerative economies, speaking more specifically to our natural and cultural resources, and environmental sustainability, as well as our economic sustainability. And then the chapters that you'll find as you peruse the general plan look like this. These are the basic heading chapters, and this is the subject matter under each. So mostly what I've been through so far, and this is where I will pause for now and see what kind of questions we may have, but I've mostly been through the introduction. Then we have a section just after that really sets the foundation for the plan and everything that comes after, related to collaborative biocultural stewardship, which is really our natural and cultural resources section, and understanding how all of those pieces really feed and intertwine with everything else in the plan. Then addressing adaptation to climate change for our overall island health, and addressing various ways to policies and actions to help, one, mitigate climate change, but also how do we adapt to the climate change that we actually see happening in front of us. Then sustainable development really is what we refer to as the built environment. It's the land use, it's the transportation and the networks and the infrastructure that sort of is what we sometimes call the bones of land use planning, as well as housing and integrated systems, which is how do all these different pieces work and fit together. Then there's a chapter on thriving and regenerative economy. It speaks generally about economy and various systems, particularly about diversification and looking for not only new and creative, but what works for the people of the island. And in particular, agriculture and food systems. We have a lot of agricultural land, but we also still have, we don't produce enough of our own food as an island. And so how can we improve that? How can we support both large and small scale farmers and things like that, as well as looking to create a more a visitor industry that honors and respects this place and honors the people who live here without being intrusive, and such that visitors who come can actually start to experience what our island has to offer. And then lastly, there's an implementation that speaks to the overall planning system. It starts to prioritize some pieces. It outlines what that capital, what I spoke to earlier about the capital improvements program, and how some pieces will be implemented, and then about a monitoring and evaluation process so that we can look back on what have we accomplished over the last few years. Once this is adopted and we start implementing various things, then looking back to see what we have implemented and monitoring that progress and making adjustments where it might be needed. So with that, I think I'm gonna pause. And see if, I don't know if you want me to start with you all, if you have questions, or do you want me to open it up to the floor? Chair?
Well, I have many questions, so I'll go back, so.
Okay, well, I'll open it up to some of the action committee members and then also to the people who are here tonight.
Okay, I guess anybody from the public have any questions? It looks like, Ms. Hanoa,
Well, what is the obsession with stewardship?
maybe come to the front to the.
So repeat your question, if that's helpful. Yeah.
I wanted to know, what is the obsession with stewardship? Everybody's putting out their stewardship, you got stewardship Kaʻū land, you got stewardship, and it's open to all, if you're not a nonprofit, you don't qualify. I mean, what is the obsession? And then the planning is with agriculture, but how can we do agriculture when we have the state giving it away, 4,000 acres of shoreline? Under the guise of conservation, where our people gotta even apply now to go fishing. It makes no sense. I mean, we need to be asking these questions from the BLNR. Why are you giving lands to outsiders, nonprofit organizations who claim to look out for the benefit of the people under conservation preservation? But who are they preserving them from? Our people. And that's why I want our people to start waking up. Don't sign these papers that they put out there to save this land. We'll find out the facts first. Because on every land, like Nature Conservancy is locked and gated. The same person, Nature Conservancy, the same person from Waikapuna down to Kaunamano. That's over 5,000 acres. You gotta ask this one person for permission. Now, the same person is talking about Punalu'u and having access to a heiau that she has nothing to do with. The Kupunas said, off limits right now, because we do not want to expose all our sacred cultural sites like how Macanao has been exploited. So what my asking is, you talk about agriculture, yes, we agriculture, but find out why the state gave all of our shoreline now. 4,000 acres, which is against, by the way, against the PASH Act, because we don't have accessibility to it. You can come up with all these programs, stewardship. You know what is stewardship was, Punalu'u? Take care, but leave
I think we lost connection with the meeting site.
Looks like it. Or sounds like it. With no sound.
I think they're gonna reboot.
here. Okay, 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 all righty. Okay, thanks, bye. Thanks, bye. Yeah.
So should I say that right now?
We're ready, yeah.
Yeah, so
No, I got it.
for the record, the time is now 5:49 PM. We had a momentary break and we will come back to agenda item number 1. We were discussing the general plan 2045 final recommended draft. So I forgot where we were exactly. with
Asking
that.
if anybody.
I believe members.
Yeah, we were asking questions.
Yeah,
we were-
okay.
We were honoring questions, so.
So-
I think, yes, but let me get myself connected real quick. So let me in, you don't. Yep. Okay, come on.
Marion?
Marion. Thank you. Okay, so the first question I have is that on your opening slide, you have the general plan up at the top, and then you have arrows going down to the CDP and arrows going down to other things. I was surprised because I thought maybe it would go up, you know, because we've gone through the CDP and its law and so my question is, if you're not getting your recommendations from the CDPs, where are your directives coming from?
Thank you for sharing.
sorry. Yeah, thank you.
You're good. You're good. So we are taking directives, and one of the things that you have in your packets for tonight is a policy rationale document. And it shows, I think some 10, I don't remember how many pages, but some 10-ish so pages of policies where those particular policies, the rationale actually came out of Kaʻū CDP. So all of the different policies that are in this draft general plan either came from the 2005 general plan in some way, or from a community development plan, or other adopted relevant plan, or some other resource document that either was part of a study or something like that. All of those resources we also provide on our website, and we can point you to the folders and things like that. So they absolutely come from, and I would say this is not a top-down filtration. This is more showing the structure of how the pieces sort of relate to one another. But one of the things that we talked about from the 2005 general plan, and the reason why we have not initiated more updates to the community development plans yet is, not that you guys are actually up for that yet, because yours was newer, but is because all of the CDPs came after the 2005 general plan was adopted. And so the idea, and also why this general plan looks so different from the previous general plan, is it had a lot more focus on various regions in that general plan, because we didn't have the CDPs. Now we have the CDPs, and so they speak directly to, and there was robust, as you all well know, robust community input and engagement through the CDP process. And so the idea is to lift up those policies that also are not just place specific, but also really affect the whole island in many ways. Like you all have some policies that are consistent with many other policies in the community development plans. And so we lifted those into this draft general plan so that you all can also hopefully focus not on everything, and not just everything about your CDP, but also those very place specific policies and actions. That answer, okay, yeah, very good, thank you.
Okay, so I was thinking about things like the vehicle miles driven that's on the horizon, and some other things that don't show up in any CDP that I'm aware of. So, and then I looked you know, a lot of this is presented as that these are guidelines. Almost sounds like suggestions, guidelines. And but on one of your pages, it says no public improvement or project or subdivision or zoning ordinance shall be initiated or adopted unless the same conform and implements the general plan. So these are not just guidelines. This is gonna be a firm structure. Is that correct? Yeah.
And yes, that's how it works now.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
That's how, thank you for telling me how it works.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Request, I want to hear what Kapuna has to say at this point.
No, what you can tell us at this time?
What's the question?
Just what's happening here at Honolulu in the general plan of things, what's going on, and what do you think about it, what we need to do? Or with your wisdom about the situation?
Well, getting on the subject of Honolulu itself. One of the things, I don't believe in putting anything down without getting information. And I like to listen to both sides. And I also believe that we have the ability to sit down and discuss issues of. Right now, the way things, when someone speaks, it sounds like it's totally one-sided. That this is what's happening and nothing can be done. I believe that if you feel that this becomes an obstacle, why not have the community sit down with them and ask them, how can we make it better? What can we do to make it better? Rather than to come up with one decision and say, no, let's just kill it. You know, when I do things, I like to think of myself as being part of a household. And not just put the child down without finding out what's happening and try to work out a solution for the child as well as for myself. And that's how I see it right now for Honolulu. You haven't given me a specific question, but if you're talking about the sacred sites, for me right now, the sacred sites should not be put out there. Because I don't want people exploiting the sites. It is sacred to the people who are here, especially Honolulu, having a Punahiki who's maintaining the area. It is his kuleana, not really mine. I would be just there to advise, but that's how I feel. And with the same feeling, I believe that by sitting down with the developers, whoever they may be, by open up the discussion and telling them we should not allow the public access to the sites, and as to the why. Simply to say, don't go, is not enough. It's like telling a child, don't eat that. But you don't say why. And the child put it in the mouth, burn the mouth, right, Chuka? So it's simply common sense, and that's how I feel about it. I hope that takes care of part of your question.
Action committee members, do you have specific questions?
For you?
Yeah.
I'll go loud. 'Cause I got children.
I don't have any. You got anything about that?
No.
Okay, so you may be last.
Okay,
That's you.
it's all on you, Jake.
All right, well, we'll start at the top. I guess the first thing is that, as you know, the Council Bill 23, which is on our agenda for tonight, was recently adopted. And so as a result, and I've been trying to decipher, but I think the one thing I noticed most predominantly is that Ocean View is shown changing from, I mean, it'll still be in the state land use designation as agricultural, but it's being proposed. Which kind of made sense prior to. What was it, Tuesday's adoption of this bill. As going from, cultural to rural. But, so the difference is that with the rural designation, you know, you could build these, 3 accessory dwelling units. And even if it's not consistent with the state's agricultural designation, and it seems that just might cause confusion, and I'm concerned that having been a planner, someone might come in and apply for something, and a planner not knowing or doing their own due diligence might erroneously approve of accessory dwelling units because the general plan land use is rural and not agricultural. And so is there a way to remove ocean view from rural and leave it in agriculture, I guess is the first question. Okay,
I can't remember them all.
so that's the first question.
This happened to us 2 nights ago, and somebody asked like 5 questions all in a row. I'm like, all right, we gotta back up. So the first piece is that, Ocean View is noted in the Kaʻū CDP as rural.
Okay.
And so we match that. And so that's part of the reason why we honor the CDPs in that way.
Rural?
Rural.
So even though the state land use designation is agricultural. I mean.
So rural in the general plan and so one of the things that we talked about in the workshop is how there was an effort to try to better utilize rural in various ways, particularly around urban developments and urban growth boundaries. So that goes from high, medium, low, rural, ag, like that. And so that was one of the ideas that one of the principles that we tried to utilize is better utilize rural. But also in the CDP, it shows Ocean View as rural. And so again, we wanted to honor that. There is a mix, and the purpose of rural is a mix of both residential and smaller lot residential and agricultural uses. And that is what Ocean View is largely used as. And so again, that's why it reflects what it does. Now, how do you change something like that from the draft? You can present testimony, you can write comments, you can do things like that and provide that to the department before September 26th, to the planning commission after that, and the county council after that. And so they will have to deliberate that. But at this point, the department is not making those changes.
Okay.
I don't particularly have a response to the ADU bill, only because that exists in code. And so, it was passed the way it was passed, and perhaps the department or the planning commission or the county council will then, if they want the general plan to somehow reflect something different from that bill, that would have to be part of the process, because what the draft happened before that bill came to be. Right, so it wasn't something we could actually react to in developing the general plan because it came after. Yeah.
There's also a distinction, yeah, so this is for future development and future wanting to rezone to higher densities. It doesn't change the zoning that Ocean View has, and so the zoning or the state land use, and so those two things go and coincide with the ordinance for ADU, right? So if it's prescribed that it has to be a certain zoning, that's not necessarily what's reflected here. So it would be whatever the current zoning, now if somebody in Ocean View wanted to upzone to something more densely, then that's where the GP comes in. And says, this is the max that you can zone to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, in my eye, it would be easier because it's. The land use designation is rural. And so it would be easier to change the zoning to something other than agriculture. Because that's the land use designation.
But you.
Yeah, so what can
You still have to
happen,
go through the process.
you still have to go through the process, and the other options for rural are also, family agriculture district from the zoning code. And, residential ag district from the zoning code, those are slightly different districts within the zoning code, but those would be allowed here.
Thank you. Yes,
So does that coincide with, we're seeing a lot of landowners up in Ocean View that are combining lots into one TMK for ag,
So
for
that's,
agricultural use.
Yeah.
Is that,
so. I'm not sure how to answer that question, but they're basically, lowering density by doing that.
you only can have one single family dwelling.
Correct, you can only have one dwelling per lot, so if they're combining it and making a 2 acre lot, for example, instead of a 1 acre lot, then they're actually,
If you go, it depends on, so it depends on the zoning again, right? So if it's
That's true.
A1 and they combine it, they still can have two houses. They're just combining. But if there's
into one
zoning,
TMK?
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's not a problem. It's still not changing your density unless they go for a rezone, right? So let's say I bought 5 acres, 5 lots, and I consolidated, and then I wanted to then go to A5, so lower the density, I'd be rezoning. But that's not necessarily what's happening. So there's no change in density unless they go for a rezone. And in that case, they would be rezoning to a lesser density.
Lesser density.
Yeah. The only other way is that if I say I did rezone, combined it, and I wanted to go to a higher density, I'd still have to fall into the parameters of what the GP says is the max density I can.
Thank you.
We're gonna trade.
okay, chair.
But so. Assuming that existing dwelling density is, or existing designation is productive agriculture. The dwelling density is up to 1 unit per 5 acres, which is not possible in Ocean View. So I don't know what the existing land use designation is. But with rural, it's up to 4 units per acre. Right? So. I guess I'm still confused. So you're saying that. Just because the land use designations, I just really want to confirm with this, and I've been working with their council person. So just because the land use designation has changed, the zoning would not change, so we still have to rezone it. However, my concern is that if somebody was diligent, they would say that, well, the land use designation is no longer agriculture, and they would have quite the argument to change it to a residential. I just want to confirm that they would have quite the argument.
But they would also have to abide by the state land use. So they could not go to in this case, with state land use agriculture, we're a 3-tiered land use state. So they would not be able to, they would have to go get a district boundary amendment through state land use commission to urban in order for them to get a residential zoning change. And they would also have to change the general plan.
Because residential is not the same thing as rural.
So I guess that was my follow-up question. So what is the difference between, So what is the difference between rural and residential, because I don't see the residential lines. I see urban and I see rural. But there is no urban in Kaʻū. There are urban designations, but urban doesn't exist, right? There might be low density urban use designations. But where I live, it's designated as low density urban. But it's RS 15 is the zone.
Which is low density.
Okay,
Correct. RS 15 loaded is in the zoning code, RS 15, which means 15,000 square foot lots. Is considered a low density designation in the general plan.
But in rural, the abiding or the coinciding zoning would be family ag, which is 1 acre, or residential ag, which is also 1 acre. So it has to do with the lot size and the
Okay.
density. So when you talk about residential, we're saying RS, that's usually low density urban.
so my follow-up question is, apparently at Punaluu, on the other side of the highway. It's going from extensive agriculture to low density urban. And apparently I had missed this when we had met down at the community center. And I believe maybe that's the Hawaiian Homelands area, and perhaps that's the reason is we're seeing their efforts to provide homestead housing sites. Do you know, is that correct? Or is this a different site? Because it's hard to tell from these maps. Because they're pretty, I mean, I understand Kaʻū is rather large, but I can't tell. Oh, that's much more zoomed in.
Okay, hold on 1 second, let me share screen again.
Because if that's what it's for, then I have obviously no objections, because I was at the Hawaiian Homeland meeting.
That's my understanding is what that is for. Let me X that out. So, let me share screen thing.
I just wanted to clarify that. What that is for.
Yes, so I think you're talking about above the highway.
So that yellow, that, as far as you know, that is the Hawaiian.
Yes,
Homelands
yes,
site,
yes,
and that's why it's being changed, the
Yes.
right there.
yes, they're nice.
And then, but on the other side of the street, it's going from some kind of weird S shape. That big orange blob. Yeah, so what is that? Cause that is currently, and I just lost it, not that. And I know that's not,
Yeah.
the Punaluu property owner. I don't know who owns that. But I also don't know why that is being proposed as medium density urban. Or what the accommodating residential zoning would be. I don't know if that's like Bishop Estates or.
I don't know who the owner is on this map, so I can't look that up correctly right now.
So, you know. I guess when we talk about Punaluu. I'm not for or against when it comes to the Punaluu project, it just doesn't comply with the CDP. But with this, I don't understand why this huge orange thing is being proposed as medium density urban. Because apparently I hadn't noticed that either. Because it's certainly not shown as that. Well, I can't tell what it is in this map. It's just a big.
Yeah.
So I guess that was my other question is would it be possible to have what the existing land use is to accompany what is being proposed? Because
Say that question again if you don't
so
mind.
the 2005, so ironically, when I was in graduate school, I did a study on the previous plan, and I did that in 2004, before the 2005 plan came out. And that plan was pretty efficient, to say the least. But the 2005 plan isn't a whole lot better, and it's really hard to tell, like, where these aren't property lines, so if you look at this compared to this. It doesn't make any sense, so I really don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. So that looks kind of like the golf course almost where the previous. Medium density urban is, and now it looks like that entire property is going from. Extensive agriculture to medium density urban.
This is the green and this is all, open
Okay, so
in
it's
the
going
two thousand
from,
five.
so it's going from open to medium density urban. So I guess that's,
And this is medium density urban, all of
Right.
this.
so. So is that also consistent with the CDP? Is that where it came from? I didn't pull that up. So. I'm really concerned with why all these. Not the Hawaiian Home Plan, because I was at that meeting and assuming they actually award people. You know, what they're most certainly entitled to, I have no objections for that. But creating all these medium density urban areas, I don't really, if it's not what was the desire of the CDP, I don't know. Why they're being created, and if they're not, then I certainly think that this action committee should write a letter saying that we are not in favor of that, so.
Okay,
That's why I'm asking, because
Well, this is still in draft form. Why wouldn't we be able to change it?
we would have to know tonight so that we can say we're gonna write a letter, that's why I'm asking these questions.
I can answer that. So it's because of the process that we're in now. So we've gone through these years of different drafts and different pieces. We're now in the final recommended draft from the department. And so now it moves forward to the planning commission. So we don't make any more changes. It doesn't mean that it can't be changed. It just means that the planning department doesn't make those changes before it moves forward again. So we would have to go backwards in order to do that, and we kind of, just last year, I understand, I get it.
Pointing
But
out
it's
it's draft document, not a final.
That's correct.
That's correct, it is still a draft, it's what we refer to as the final recommended draft.
Right.
Of the plan, but it still goes to planning commission, it still goes to county council. So it is not final until it is adopted by the county council, and even after that, amendments can happen through what's called an interim amendment process. So, and that is what happened in 2005, they adopted it, and then in 2006 and 2007, they adopted additional changes after they adopted it.
And then my
What
last.
else you got?
Yeah, this is an easy one, so. Not related to planning much, how did they assign coral reefs, because apparently Kaʻū doesn't have any. And I know they might not be extensive, perhaps like Captain Cook area, but I'm just curious if you know, we could find out how that was created.
Yeah, I'll have to look at so he's looking at the resource map on page 9, it's map number 19, excuse me, page 281 of the plan. And I'd have to look and see where the resource is that informed that, but we can look that up.
Okay, and so the reason I'm asking
I
about
don't know it off
that
the
is,
top of my head, sorry.
right, so for, urban runoff purposes, that if it doesn't show that there's a coral reef, people might not be concerned about stormwater runoff, so, because the land use map is showing, oh, there's no coral reef there to be worried about, so
Yeah.
that's what. I think that, yeah, all right, thank you so much.
You bet. Other questions? All right. Are there any questions online? Okay, with that, then I will hand this back over to you, Chair, and move on with your agenda.
All right, thank you, April. We do appreciate the presentation from the planning department. The time is now 6:17 p.m. The committee will now move on to business item number 2, the letter to the Windward Planning Commission regarding the Black Sands Beach LLC SMA application. BL SMA 2023-000. 046